Okay, we're on live.
Thanks, Joe.
Yes, I'm here.
Marvelous. Dr. Garcia, we have a quorum, and given that we're going into executive session, I'm inclined for us to go ahead and get started. Do you not agree?
I agree.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order.
This is Lorraine Price. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome, Vice President Price. Your timing is impeccable.
All right.
I'm here too.
Hey, Sarah's here. All right, we have a full board. That is great. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and do the Pledge of Allegiance as well as the salute to the New Mexico flag in English and in Spanish, followed by the acknowledgement of tribal lands. Does anyone want to lead in the pledge and or salute?
I'll do it. Carmen.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro fidelidad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, divisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Saludo la bandera del Estado de Nuevo México, de amistad perfecta entre nosotros y
And the acknowledgement of tribal land. Thank you.
We acknowledge the original people of the land, the Tusuki Pueblo people and other tribal nations, and ask them to walk with us today as we share and learn together.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving on to approval of the agenda. If there are no changes.
Madam
Dr.
President?
Garcia, yeah.
I know that Ms. Zink really wants to be able to give her presentation today. And she does have another commitment, has to be done by 7. Looking at the agenda, I would think that we should be okay. My updates shouldn't take that long. Ms. Zink, I think we're okay, but if we don't move it? Well, if we could just have flexibility if we need to, if for some reason board updates go long, but I think we'll be okay.
I was going to suggest that. And the other thing is to check in just on how many public forum announcements.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes.
Because, and if it's all right with the board, we'll remain flexible in order to accommodate that and make sure we have enough time to ask questions and have a good discussion with Ms. Sink. I'm looking forward to that presentation.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board.
Okay.
I move to approve the agenda as it is with the agreement that will be flexible as needed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Bose, a second by Secretary Garcia. We will do a roll call vote. Vice President Price?
Yes.
Secretary Garcia?
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Board Member Bose?
Yes.
We have approved the agenda. Thank you very much. Now we are moving on to Roman numeral 2 on the agenda, executive session. Secretary Garcia.
Madam President, I'd like to take the Board of Education into the executive session, which we will discuss collective and bargaining. Item number 1 is a National Education Association of Santa Fe Public Schools bargaining agreement. And number 2 is Santa Fe Federation School Employees and Santa Fe Public Schools collective bargaining agreement as well. As a motion.
Second.
Thank you very much. Motion by Secretary Garcia, second by Dr. Gonzalez. We'll do a roll call vote. Secretary Garcia,
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Board Member Bozay,
Yes.
Vice President Price,
Yes.
and the president votes yes. We are in executive session. We will return right around 5:30. And for board members and staff, we'll see you in the other place.
This is Lorraine. Can you hear me?
Lorraine,
Hi,
this is
Lorraine.
Tom
Yes,
Ryan.
we
I can hear
can.
you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, are we going to have a meeting here?
Hi, Vice President Press. Yeah. Looks like we have about 1 minute before 5:30. You can hear me all right, yes?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I can hear you. And it looks like Sarah's with us.
I am with you.
I liked it when for a minute we had two of you in the meeting, Sarah.
Yes, I figured out the technology issue I was having, and my computer had frozen with everyone's faces in very strange, distorted
Gonzalez just
position.
joined.
Thank you, Alma. Dr. Gonzalez is there. It would be good to have Dr. Garcia. Secretary Garcia is texting that he's having connectivity issues. Okay, we'll just hopefully get Dr. Garcia. Oh, Dr. Garcia is here. Marvelous.
I kind of was spinning around in the waiting room. Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Secretary Garcia texted me during our brief break that he was having connectivity issues.
I was having trouble getting in for some reason. It was like spinning for some reason.
He said, try to start without me. remote, and he'll try to get on. He'll keep trying. Okay, does anybody want to bring us back from executive session? Make the motion.
I can try to give that a shot.
Go for it.
Sorry.
I would like to make a motion to bring us out of executive session where we discuss collective bargaining with the National Education Association of Santa Fe and the Santa Fe Federation of School Employees and their collective bargaining agreements. No action was taken.
Second.
Okay, excellent. We have a motion by Board Member Bozé, a second by Dr. Gonzalez. We'll do a roll call vote coming out of executive session. Vice President Price,
Yes.
Secretary Garcia, still no, not with us. Dr. Gonzalez,
Yes.
Board Member Bozé,
Yes.
and the President votes yes. Thank you very much. We are out of executive session. Moving on to the introduction of interpreter, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Para servicio de traducción en español, marque 701-802-5152, número de acceso 4277-932 pound. Yo no sé cómo se dice esa marca en español, pero si están viendo en la computadora, ahí está el número. Y por favor, mantenga su teléfono en silencio durante la traducción. Gracias.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Roman numeral 4 on the agenda, public forum. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Dr. Ryan, I believe you're hosting public forum this evening.
Yes, ma'am. And I will go through that now. We have two people that have submitted something to the public forum. I'll read those in a second. If you, Alma, could bring back the rules, the screen share with the rules. I'll go over those before I start the reading. We have offered a place on our website so that the public can add a public comment. It will be emailed to us and it will be read during the public forum by me. We ask that people be respectful with no uncivil conduct being permitted, that we do not discuss a specific student other than your own. The district will observe a 3-minute limit for each entry. I will read the entry up until 3 minutes. And then there is no dialogue, that the board may not participate in dialogue in the public forum, but you may address any issue that is either on the agenda or off. Please seek for common ground, and please be advised that, again, the discussion by the board may not be allowed by law, and no action can be taken on an item that is not on the agenda. So with that, we have two submissions. I'm going to set my timer. The first one is from Zanet Ramos Benavides. And sorry. As a teacher, I am fully committed to making this year the best it can be. I am working hard to be the best remote teacher. I have spent my time over the summer finding and attending a variety of professional development events from people who have been doing remote or distance teaching for more than a few months. I have assessed many of the training videos for open access. I was thrilled to see Big Blue Button, which was as Zoom-like capabilities to create teacher-monitored breakout rooms, timed breakout sessions, more importantly, a whiteboard function. These are the exact tools I have that I need to have to ensure student engagement and success. When asking about this feature, I found out that SFPS has the rights to use it as part of our purchase, and that we own access system licenses, but it will not be made available to use. Why? If we paid for something and are not being allowed to use it, that seems like an extreme waste of resources in these lean times. Why are we, the teachers, not going to be allowed to use big blue button on open access? The second submission is by Brooke Turnquest. And she says, did you know that in middle school in this district, the student can only fail the school year if they earn less than 60% for 2 core content subjects as their year-end average in Power School? Often a student's report card will show that they earned 4 or 5 Fs for various grading quarters in different subjects, but they did not fail the year. And failing the year does not mean they must repeat the grade. It means the parent guardian can waive them on to the next grade, or they can attend a brief summer school to earn credit. Then they are on to the next grade. So I ask you this: if Santa Fe Public Schools is going to pass students on to the next grade, regardless of their academic performance, then what is the point of assigning traditional letter grades to students during a given school year? What purpose does the F grade serve, or any grade really? As a middle school student math teacher with SFPS for 13 years, I would say the real effect of assigning an F grade is this: it lets students know that their teacher is not satisfied with their work, and it shames and blames them for their struggles with the school system. Seeing F grades on the report card, or for some students seeing C's and D's, causes students to stress and anxiety and reinforces negative self-talk. It does not inspire them to learn. It makes them angry at their teachers and their schools for making them feel badly about themselves. How is this cycle serving our students and schools and our community? If we are going to pass students on anyway, why can't we do it without dragging them through the mud first? Or we could stand by the grade and actually have them repeat the class or the grade level. But if we're not willing to, or logistically unable to, then let's find a better way to communicate with our students, one that is feasible given our limited resources. Some may say that traditional letter grades are the easiest way to communicate processes to families and a system that provides that people will understand. I ask you, are we not already in the throes of reinventing public education? Aren't our families and students learning new systems and definitions on the fly right now? Now is the moment when everyone is watching, listening, and adapting to a new normal. So isn't now the time to make it better, more equitable, and descriptive way for teachers to communicate with families about the education of their children? We could make a nuanced system that holds students at a multifaceted and resourceful, as multifaceted and resourceful human beings, and that is time. And that is the end of public comment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ryan. Much appreciated. Moving on the agenda, we are at board announcements and follow-up. Are there any announcements from the board? I would just say I had the pleasure of speaking to an abbreviated back to school bash today alongside Dr. Garcia. I don't know how many folks attended, but Like everything else, we are adapting and working on things like the Back to School Bash, which brings together the district staff remotely this year. But I appreciate the opportunity and just want to also say in this forum, welcome back and thank you to all of the staff at the Santa Fe Public Schools. And we know there's a lot of work and a lot of flexibility demanded, but we truly appreciate all you do for this community. Okay, moving on the agenda.
I have a.
Go ahead,
this
Vice
is Lorraine.
President Price. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to suggest that in the next school board meeting, we do an update on vaccinations and that the head nurse be available to be introduced to school board members who may not know who she is.
Okay, I think that seems reasonable. Unless Dr. Garcia wants to comment, we will look at that for, if it's all right, one of the next two board meetings.
Madam President, I couldn't hear the first part of what I heard, having the lead nurse here who is Anita Het, but I missed the first part.
The first part was an update on vaccinations and having the lead nurse to, in this format, meet our board members and just provide an update on that. So unless you'd object, we can work on fitting that into probably the next board meeting. And if that looks very heavy with budget issues, I would say we could do it at the following board meeting. But one of our next couple board meetings will bring that update on vaccinations and bring the head nurse in per Vice President Price's request. Okay, moving on the agenda, superintendent announcements and follow-up. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. And my printer decided to recalibrate, so I'm sorry that might be making some background noise. First of all, I'd like to announce our fifth and sixth round. We will have our final round before school starts on the 20th. Of Superintendent's Challenge. And do we have a brief video? Asking Alma, yeah, we do.
We do, Dr. Garcia. Dr. Ryan will be showing it.
Onward, there were only interior changes. The exterior largely remains the one that Truman rebuilt.
Not all of the names were captured, so I'm going to go through them quickly. William Boland, pre-K at Kearney, also from Kearney kindergarten. Julian Narvaez, Sierra Madre, first grade. Andrew Plow, second grade. Gonzalez, Jaden Romero, third grade from Atalaya, Stella Council. Pinon, fourth grade. Macy Quintana Lowry. Gonzalez, fifth grade. Julian Rodriguez. Sixth grade, Atalaya, Morgan Gutierrez. Seventh grade, from Aspen, Giovanna Chavez. Eighth grade, Mateo Reese McCullough from El Dorado. Capitol High, Sarah Fergus, ninth grade. Santa Fe High School, Marisol Serna, 10th grade. Mandela International Magnet, Robert Menetre, 11th grade. And Santa Fe High, Desiree Perales, 12th grade. And then we also had our fifth round winners, and they are from pre-K, from Tesuque, Devaya Lockwood, Kinder at Gonzalez, Mudra Mong, Kearney, first grade, Shaylin Montoya, Wood Gormley, second grade, Malcolm Campbell, Kearney, third grade, Gabriela Narvaez, Gonzalez, fourth grade, Yanali Rodriguez, Ramirez Thomas, fifth grade, Juliet Caballero, Ortiz, Jacqueline Dominguez, but she's in the sixth grade. Chloe Gessler, seventh grade from El Dorado. Sydney Bronchel, eighth grade. Sydney Bronchel from Milagro. Christina Chavez, Santa Fe High, ninth grade. Natalie Gutierrez Chavez, Capitol High, 10th grade. Jana Bargesi, Mandela, 11th grade. And last but not least, 12th grader, Luke Mieta from Santa Fe High. Last round for Superintendent's Challenge. They will be drawn early next week before school starts on the 20th. So students, last chance to get your Superintendent's Challenge projects in. Thank you for participating. We have as a standing item use of outdoor space. Ms. Wagner.
Superintendent Garcia, board members, we continue to plan for and organize, particularly for outdoor seating for eating, outdoor learning, and that involves mostly purchase of temporary shade structures. So that's our update at this time.
Okay, thank you. Also, you may recall that the board was a leader on November 19th of 2019, voted unanimously to approve sending a letter to Ms. Jan Goodwin, Executive Director of the New Mexico Educational Retirement Board, asking that investments for profit prisons be discontinued. And that campaign has continued. More districts jumped on board. And today, the ERB's investment committee met at 1 p.m. to discuss the issue of divestment in for-profit prisons. As reported in the Santa Fe Reporter, if the 3-member committee approves the move, there's a good chance the full board would take a public vote on this issue tomorrow at its 9 a.m. meeting. So we can encourage folks to go ahead and attend. Next, we have a follow-up. You all had asked. So anyway, congratulations to the board. I mean, you all have been leaders in this endeavor. And we're very, very proud of being a part of this movement. There were concerns at several previous board meetings about the signage at the La Guaite building, the Armando La Guaite building that now houses Mandela. And that has been remediated, and I don't know, either Alma or Gabe, I think, have a photo to show you the new signage. And Mr. Laraguate was chief of the Santa Fe Police from 1940 to 1942. He served on the Santa Fe City Council. He served Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office, and he also served on the Santa Fe Public School Board. The building is named after the former chief because he donated the land to the school district when it was built. And does somebody have a photo? So there is Mandela, but I think you have a close-up where you can see the plaque, because I know the one I saw looked a lot different. And there's the plaque. the Armando Larraguaite building. And I know that was really important to the board members, and wanted you to know that that was done. We are still getting information from parents on their preference for enrollment in the 2021 school year for the entire year. And it is still falling, with more people leaning towards remote learning. You know, my goal was to be able to match up the teachers and the students now, so that students would not have to change, right? Start remote, and then when we go into hybrid, change teachers. We're giving parents, and we're doing our best to contact them by Monday. If by the end of the day on Monday, we will have to, you know, we'll start everybody on remote, but there's no guarantee that they will keep the same teacher for the rest of the year, because we do have to start making those matches and building those rosters. And I just wanted to say that we had 3 virtual town halls last week with live chat questions. Some of those have well gone over 2,000 in terms of views. People don't watch them all at the time, but they go back and they watch them. Last Tuesday, we had one totally in Spanish, Somos un Pueblo Unido. Marcela Diaz helped host that for us. Dr. Lujan and all of our Spanish, I don't say all of, but key Santa Fe district leadership that are fluent in Spanish assisted in that. It was a great forum. And then next Tuesday, we will have one just for staff. It will be internal, and that will be a full Q&A with district leadership. And then I want to do another one the following week, after parents get a chance to get their feet wet with remote learning, to have another Q&A just with family. It won't be a presentation, but just answering questions. And we'll keep announcing those as we progress. And at this time, I am happy to present, if it's okay, Madam President, that we go to presentations, and that Ms. Linda Sink, Deputy Superintendent, will be presenting a day in the life for returning students.
Hang on one moment, Dr. Garcia. Yeah, Dr. Gonzalez, go ahead.
Yes, back to the Larraguaite building. You know, Philip Larraguaite, his son, talked to me, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, asked me what was happening. And at that point, I didn't know what was happening with the schools. I knew it was Mandela. Has the family been contacted? About
Not sure. I don't know if they were or not, but we can. You know, the sign.
We lost, I can't hear you.
You muted yourself somehow in waving hands.
I'm sorry. I have a touch screen also, and it's a very sensitive computer. So it just, like, I do this all the time. I don't know if we have or not. Do you know, Mr. Romero?
We did not contact the family.
We can let them know if you would like.
I think that'd be really good, because he brought it up to me and I didn't know how to respond to it.
Right. So yes, we'll be happy to let them know that the signage is actually improved and better, and we're happy to have restored that to that building.
Thank you.
Okay, on to the presentation.
Good evening, President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia. I'll also have Associate Superintendent Vanessa Romero presenting some with me tonight. And again, we are looking at a day in the life, and also we're looking in general at our online instructional program. So we've said this before, and I'll just reiterate it because it's so important, that the cornerstone of Santa Fe Public Schools instructional design is an instructional program. And I don't know if we can make it a little bit smaller, Ms. Romero, just a touch, or to move it over the, yes, that helps. Instructional program that ensures, I guess, a minimum of a year's growth for the school year, regardless of the instructional model. So we may have to make it smaller if I can't see all the words, but hopefully I'll figure them out. So one thing that I wanted to add before I go to the next bullet is, I think you all know, but I just want to remind you that the demands to prepare students for college and career and the increase of the use of instruction of, of technology and jobs today and happening more and more makes online learning essential now and in the future. So what we're investing in today and moving through this year and all the power on all that we're doing with professional development and the money that we're spending, I think is a fantastic investment, because these tools can be used in colleges and careers for many years to come. So tonight I want to show you what we're doing to hopefully build an effective online learning design that embeds the 21st century skills. And if you would recall, 21st century skills are your critical and creative thinking, your collaboration, your teamwork, that type of thing. So when anyone is building a learning, whether it's a lesson plan or this whole design, it takes time, creativity, and hard work. So the teachers are having to build lessons. We're building lessons for them right now. We're teaching them how to do it. But it is hard work, and I can't say that enough. Teachers need to be able to plan and teach in a way that empowers and engages our learners. So we will teach them creative tools and apps that students can use themselves to create projects, for instance. So it's a little bit different, that we're really a different type of learning, and that we truly are empowering our learners now. And I think that's one of the most exciting part of online learning that we can benefit from. We also in turn want to create opportunities for students to demonstrate their creative thinking and their problem solving while collaborating with their peers. Again, 21st century skills that all students need for going on into their jobs. Therefore, if we expect an effective online learning, then we need to provide an effective professional development. And with that, we would be providing new digital learning activities and tools such as Edpuzzle, discussion boards, etc. And I'll talk about these more later. This is just a reminder to you, is the synchronous versus the asynchronous. We'll use these terms throughout this evening. You're going to keep hearing them all year as we move through this online professional development, and you hear more from teachers. Synchronous, again, are teachers and learners working together in real time in an interactive environment such as Google Meets, real-time discussions with students. And we can also record synchronous meetings. So I'll talk more about the recording in a little while. Teachers and learners are working at different times in an asynchronous environment. So learn the lessons and content and assignments can be posted online, but basically students are working independently and submit assignments when they're due. So what we're going to see now is a schedule, and I think you've seen in the past an example of a schedule, but since we've seen you, we've fine-tuned this schedule, and this becomes then the day of the life of Luke. And Vanessa is going to help me with this, but for now I just want to show you the schedule. Are you ready?
Can you see it?
No, we cannot see it.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. So we call this, and we'll call this a day in the life, but it is our schedule, and it's the return to school with a full remote learning approach. And as again, you'll see the synchronous session, which is online live lessons. You'll see asynchronous, which is a more tan color. And I wanted to assure you and show you today that we're not having teachers synchronous all day long, that the screen time is not all day with the teacher. And I think that they're going to be very thoughtful on how long the lessons that they give to the students when they're offline. Nonetheless, at 8 o'clock to 8:20, which we're excited about putting this right into our lesson, is there's a check-in. This is your SEL check-in. There's curriculum on that where teachers have been given certain kinds of questions and discussion.
I
Yes.
think I'm just going to interrupt you. SEL, social emotional learning, and then throughout, if you don't mind, just clarifying the initials, please.
All right.
Thank you.
From 8:30 to 8:50 is where, and you can see it's purple, so it's synchronous. The teacher is now with the students, talking to the students. They are possibly doing a lesson with the whole group. They're guiding a practice. They're working with English language development standards and embedding all of that in the lessons. And again, this is synchronous. And then there's some independent small group instruction. And while one group is maybe working on their work, another group is working with the teacher. But they're still in the same room, if you will, talking with each other while maybe the teacher is in a small group working with whether it's special ed or ELD or with interventionists. And then I think, so a break is coming up in just a minute, but the teacher can be meeting with some students while others are working independent. And now from this 8:50 to 9:20, kids are offline, if you will, except if the students that the teacher would like to see during this time frame. So the next thing that we have, and again, the teachers have the ability to mix this up a little bit. And I think our big thing is that they make sure that they do these lessons in the reading and in the math. And if you remember, what we've embedded basically is the same idea that we've shown you in the past in Math Matters and Read for Santa Fe. So all of those kinds of things that we normally do, we're going to continue do in this format, in the read alouds, in the math mini lessons, in the guided practice for math as well. And again, back in independent work with kids in math. And again, teachers working with some students. So now students are in the tan color here from 10:20 to 10:50 are working on their assignments on their own. And we'll come back and either turn those assignments in or they will discuss those assignments with their teacher or whatnot. Finally, there's lunch. So they'll be having a very good break for lunch, as you can see. And from 12 to 12:25, we'll be doing labs. They could either be a science lab or a social studies type lab or lesson. Moving on down, the specials truly in elementary, we've shown them here 12:30 to 1:30, but truly when the principal works on these schedules, specials will be throughout the day. We just couldn't show them throughout the day and not have this gigantic piece of paper in front of you. So the library, PE, art, and tech will still be your 60 minutes floating throughout the day. From 1:30 to 2:30, the students are still completing their asynchronous assignments. And teachers, again, can get on and work with kids that they want to, or the interventionists can, or even EAs can with small groups. And then from 2:30 to 2:45, we do hope the teacher will get back on to in the day with their kids, especially in elementary. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to, but we're hoping that they will. On Wednesdays, we're going to expect that teachers are still checking in with their class and working in small groups with them, working with intervention and enrichment and planning, and prep will be mostly in the afternoon. So with that being said, Vanessa, Associate Superintendent Romero, is going to talk about that, a little boy in grade 4 named Luke.
Good evening, President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia. I'm just going to kind of describe what Luke's day would look like, a 4th grader within the schools. So Luke is a 4th grade student with us. And like all students, Luke will engage in distance learning this coming fall. All of Luke's work for the week is laid out for him in open access. He starts his Monday by logging into his Chromebook and completing a daily check-in before class starts. This check-in gives the classroom teacher some information on how Luke is feeling for the day. Luke then joins his 23 classmates for a synchronous or live lesson given by Ms. Romero through Google Meets, which he accessed through a link in open access. Ms. Romero takes the class through a 20-minute synchronous writing lesson in which she provides instruction, answers questions, she checks for understanding from the students. And at the end of the reading lesson, Luke stays with Ms. Romero along with 4 other classmates, so he can receive some small group support based on the lesson, while the rest of his classmates have individual activities to complete independently using Flipgrid, which you'll see an example of that later in the presentation. At 9:20, Ms. Romero gathers the whole class again, and she provides a quick mini lesson in reading to the whole class. Then they're given a break, but then Ms. Romero would repeat the same thing, gather all 23 students together to deliver a lesson in math for the day, provide some guided practice before releasing kids to work independently. And while she's working with a small group of children. And then just as Linda explained, they have their lunch, which is about an hour. They would come back and the teacher would provide a whole group lesson again in science or social studies. And then Luke has specials at the end of the day. So this particular day on a Monday, he goes to PE with his classmates. And we're asking our special people. Yes.
Romero, just clarify what specials are, please.
Yes, it's library, PE, art, technology, music. So Luke has his PE class for 30 minutes at the end of the day, and that is also a live lesson with his PE teacher. But then the rest of his day is left to completing assignments independently. And we're going to show you some tools later on in the presentation that are embedded in open access. And as Linda said, the teacher, Ms. Romero, would gather all the kids back at the end of the day just for closure. Give me just a second. Let's see. Are you ready for the next slide? Or?
Yeah, for the secondary online schedule.
Oh.
So the secondary online schedule is a little bit easier to go through because it's not quite as complex through the day because of all the different courses, etc.
Can you see that?
No. There we go. So the high school schedule, I think you've seen this before, we've modified it a little bit. We're looking at having first period go from 8:40 to 9:35, and then second period, and so it goes on through the day. They'll see 6 to 7 classes. But I wanted to break up this first period to show you what they would be doing. Again, they would be in whole group. They would be synchronous with their students. And the very beginning, they would also hopefully do somewhat of a social emotional type opening, seeing and feeling how students are doing. Then they would also at that time, probably at the same time, taking attendance, then moving into direct instruction, which would be a whole group lesson, and then moving into individual small group, while the rest of the group would be asynchronous, working on probably either an activity or another part of the lesson. And I'll give you some ideas of that in a minute. And then they would come back to whole group for closure. Again, teachers can mix this up, can move this around and have a lot more autonomy than what I'm saying to you right now. But the whole idea is that that they definitely need to be with their kids part of the day, and they definitely need to have the students working on something having to do with that direct instruction. I can't hear you, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you. Ms. Singh, can you just clarify though, the students aren't going to be in front of the computer for 6.5 hours all day, are they?
No, and again, we were really, I think, clear last spring, and we've been talking about it again, that they will be with their students, you know, during these, at least part of this time. So let's say it's 8:40 to 8:55, they can decide if they're going to come back. But on the assignments that they give them, the activities they give them, we're trying to have them be very conscious of not having them be like if let's say they're working on a project, it doesn't have to be a project that's online, or an activity doesn't have to be an online activity, and it certainly doesn't need to be all day long. So all the teachers have discussed this. They're all working together to try and help keep the kids not being literally on the computer for 7 hours.
So for
Yes,
example,
Board Member Gonzalez.
So for example, if the teacher were having a discussion with the students, I just want to clarify this, because when we look at the schedule, it looks like they're going to be in front of the computer with a different teacher every hour through the whole day, which, you know, is not sustainable even for us to, like right now, my back is killing me. So it's not expected that they're going to even be in a group discussion for the whole period. There will be independent work and time for the kids to have a break beyond the 5-minute passing period, correct?
Yes, Dr. Garcia, if you look at the timing on that 8:40 to 8:55, on that whole group instruction, that could be a shorter time, for instance, taking attendance, do a whole group. And at 8:55 to 9:25 is a half an hour there where they're asynchronous. So they're working offline at this point. Now they may want to use their computers if they want to for, you know, let's say working on a paper, but they could be doing reading at that point. So they are asynchronous during that time. And we have talked to teachers about not having them on the computer the whole period.
Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Garcia. So, but the teachers, if you're an English teacher, say, you're going to be teaching each period, correct?
Yes.
A different group of kids coming in?
Yes, just as they are in a regular day.
Okay. So that's going to be a little hard on the teachers, I think, to be connected all day long.
Well, they do have, I believe they have 2 periods off, and one of them is with their PLC and their other colleagues, and one of them is their planning period. Now,
what is the PLC?
That's your professional learning community, where they work together to even look at assessments together, look at data together, build lessons together.
Okay,
they also have their lunch, and I think that they'll be smart about the amount of time they spend during each period, because even for themselves and their students. So like I said, we've had these discussions. So I think and you know, as I've told the principals even today, that nothing is set in stone. If this isn't working, if the schedule is not working for the teachers, we can go back and relook at that schedule.
Madam President, on that point is why we wanted this first 9 weeks and we worked with the union on this, and it's to get the teachers used to teaching in this modality, but also, you know, the expectation is higher than when we were on this last spring. But the way the lessons that were prepared by Ms. Zink and the team, all that they worked on, really give a lot of variety and interaction. And it's kind of dry when you see it like this, but when you see the actual lessons, they're quite engaging and I think fun. But there are so many other models to look at in schedules, and we may decide after we do this and get input that we want to modify the high school schedule or the high school and middle school schedule in a certain way. You don't know till you actually do it. And so this was a very ambitious undertaking, but we definitely are, it's not cast in concrete by any means.
So I do want to move on for time's sake because I'd like to show you some of those lessons. And if you could, thank you, Ms. Romero. So we're going to, and we provide professional development. We've provided the past, this past week, which were on Monday and Tuesday. I'm sorry, on Tuesday and Wednesday, we provided professional development to all of our teachers. But prior to this week, online teaching pretty much resembled face-to-face instruction in the classroom. And what I mean by that is if you're using Google Classroom, you can provide a reading assignment, you can discuss that assignment and have them write a paper, for example. But what we're trying to do now is we're having professional development that changes online learning into an interactive experience utilizing these digital tools. So for an example, let's look at Loom. And Loom in grade 4 is an example of using a video that's actively, the student can video themselves as a project or the teacher can video an activity. So this.
Good morning, boys and girls. I'm glad you're here.
Sorry, did you want to speak? Sorry, Linda.
No, I was just going to say that this teacher has made a Loom, and this is a type of video for an activity, and she's doing it on a My Monologue. So go ahead, Vanessa.
With me today. Today we're going to be doing lesson 4 for reading, and our focus for today's lesson is on details and text evidence. And we are reading Night of the Spadefoot Toads. It's our class novel right now. And remember, our focus for our unit is on theme. Themes are developed through understanding characters, settings, and events. And today we will use all of the details and character traits we've collected this week to write monologues for 2 characters. Now, a monologue is a speech given by a person. Mono means one, and log means speech. So the speech will be from the character's point of view, okay? So as we're reading today, we're going to look for key details in the text to support what we think the characters are feeling. We'll quote specific examples from the text to help us as evidence as we write our monologues. So first, I will model how to write a monologue. Then you will write a monologue and you'll record it on Flipgrid so you can view your classmates' monologues, okay? So let's look at chapter 4 of Night of the Spadefoot Toad. In this chapter, the 2 characters, Ben, the main character, the protagonist, and Frankie, the antagonist or the bully, are arguing, okay? Let's go look at the text. So in this example, Ben finds a frog and he pulls it out and Ryan tries to grab it from his hand. Remember this part of the story? And I'm going to look at this one text example here. Frankie pounces. Got it, he yells. He holds it up and starts to run around the room with it. He shoves it in Janice Decker's face. Here, kiss it. Give the toadie a little kiss. Wow, that's a really good example from the text. And that piece of evidence I'm going to add to my monologue sheet. So I'm going to pretend like I am Frankie, and let me model for you how this works. I type his name, and I have a detail from the text. If I have to go back, it was page 38. I always cite my page number. Frankie steals the frog from Ben and shoves it in Janice's face. Wow, what could that example from the text tell me about Frankie's character? 1, he might want to be the class clown, right? That sounds kind of funny. Maybe his friends are going to laugh at him, shoving it in Janice's face. 2, maybe he doesn't really like Ben. Why else would he take a frog out of his hand? And 3, he doesn't really have regard for other people's feelings. That's how it seems to me. That's how my evidence supports my understanding of Frankie. So then when I come to the monologue, I might write something like this.
So again, that was an example of a digital tool called Loom. And again, it is that teacher videoed that activity, and students can actually use Loom as well to video themselves. Vanessa, just for a couple seconds, I want them to see, you notice the teacher used the word Flipgrid. What Flipgrid is another app that's already in open access. And the teacher can ask a student to record themselves by answering some questions, for instance. So maybe the teacher had them do a little activity, but they had to answer through a video, teaching them how to do the video, teaching them how to answer like that. And this button literally records this video for the kids, so they don't need any help with this. They just do it themselves. And we'll just do a real snippet on this, Ms. Romero.
Sure. My computer's taking a while.
If it's not coming on fast enough, we can go ahead and go to the professional development.
For some reason, it just kept spinning.
Well, why don't we go ahead and go to the professional development? That's okay.
Okay.
Can you see the screen?
No. So what I want to show you here is in the 4 days of professional development, I want to give you an idea of what we provided and what we built over the summer. If you recall, I told you that it was our coordinators in our teaching and learning, C&I, et cetera, special ed, bilingual, multicultural, all of those folks, plus about 72 teachers who helped build these lessons. So you'll see digital learning, also the digital coaches from the technology department. We have the K-5 Envision for math, and Envision is the new instructional book for math, and it's all online. So we built this particular one. And if you move over, show them from the C&I built this particular one. You can see that in this case, the presenter was the Savas Learning Publisher. So we get all free professional development from them when we've adopted their materials. And what the teachers got to do is, if you see before the training and go to the training, they can go in and look at the instructional material, and then they can go straight to the training. So we built all this so it would be very easy for them to pick, and then they could go into these trainings for the next 4 days. So would you back up, Ms. Romero? Right now, if you look up in that left-hand corner, you'll see August 11th elementary. So if you move down, the digital learning coaches built these lessons. They're elementary K-8, 6th grade teachers, setting up your digital classroom for student success. You'll notice it's from 9:30 to 11, but they have it again from 1 to 3. And if you move on down, Ms. Romero, you'll see that now teaching and learning, the library staff also gave a professional development setting the stage, 9 to 3, and this was all librarians. And by the way, on the other end that you didn't see, they were able to click and give us a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on what they rated us. And then they also, we asked them to give us feedback. I have that feedback now. I presented to the principals in general today. In general, we got some fabulous feedback, and we're going to be giving that to the principals more scientifically, if you will. I'm trying to see, why don't you go to middle school, high school on 8/12. And go back to the 11, go back to the left, yes. So now on the 12th, you'll start seeing that 6th grade ELA, 6th grade social studies, 6th grade science, and this is now lessons. And again, what each of these groups did, there's about 3 people, 4 people in each team that taught these and developed these courses. I wanted to remind you that the reason it takes so long, 9 to 11:30, is because they built 4 weeks of lessons, 4 lessons per week. That's a lot of work. Took all summer. So you can see that we had it for 6th grade science. Mid-school math is our new mid-school instructional resource. Again, online. It's called Mid-School Math. It's much more interactive. Very excited. The teachers were excited. We got great reviews on this PD. And there are many other times, there's other times that mid-school math presented as well. We also had ELA, 7th grade, 8th grade ELA.
I'd like to say something to think about the math adoption, particularly for middle school. I think this particular curriculum that was selected for math, we're going to see better outcomes for high school. You know, middle school students are very different. And I think to reach them and engage them takes different strategies and different techniques. Taos has had a lot of success with this curriculum. I think Linda and the team went and visited Taos to see what they were doing because they were getting good outcomes in the middle grades in math. So we're super excited to see how, you know, to see some improvement because one of the biggest complaints from the high school teachers in 9th grade is that the students are coming and they're not prepared after having left middle school. And we think there were a lot of gaps. We hadn't had a math adoption because it hadn't been funded, but what, 7 years, I think?
Yeah, it's been 7 years since we've had a new book, and so very out of date.
And not aligned to the core Common Core standards.
That's exactly
so
right.
I'm very, very excited. So keep your eye on middle school math achievement. Fingers crossed. You know, I don't know how well it works in this environment, but just keep your eye on it. I think you're going to see huge improvements in math.
The teachers seem very excited. And I just wanted to give you a flavor for the high school. If you move on down, Ms. Romero, you'll see 8th grade and 9th grade there, ELA, but we go into Algebra 1 and we did, they got to use their new Algebra 1 materials. We also had, of course, ELA all the way through 12th grade. We had world history, geometry, chemistry, American history, Algebra 2, environmental science. We couldn't have done this, as you can imagine, without teacher help. So it's been an extraordinary time for us. And I'm really proud of these teams and what they've done. You'll see that we even have wellness lessons. And if you go into the 17.
Middle school or elementary?
Let's go on to middle school, high school again. I want to show them what else they're going to have available. So there's more wellness, and then there's what's really interesting is that we have probably for the first time, Indian Ed is going to be presenting also, and How culturally responsive are you? I think that's going to be very interesting. And digital learning again is coming back in to see the Ed puzzle again, and different apps for teachers to learn. And what we told the principals today, that we're not stopping with this. We're going to be providing more and more help all year long. And I read through most of the feedback so far, and most of them want to have some more work and practice on open access and Seesaw. So technology, we met with them today, and they're going to offer some more open access even on these 2 days, on Monday and Tuesday, for them to choose. So if we go to the last thing I want to show you, if you feel like we still have time enough, Dr. Garcia, it's up to you. We have one lesson from a fabulous teacher from Santa Fe High School, a lesson of hers that she built for everybody. Her name is Julieta Salazar. If you feel like we have time to see that, that's great. If you don't, I totally understand. Yes? All right. All right, Vanessa Romero. While she's getting ready, I'll just let you know that you'll notice several apps that she's using. She uses Ed Puzzle, discussion boards. She uses videos made from iMovie. And the reason she likes that is because she uses it as a flipped classroom. So this will be something that will be fun for you to see.
Salazar. I'm a teacher at Santa Fe High School, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I have created in open access covering English Language Arts 10. The purpose of this endeavor is to provide teachers with lesson plans and materials in open access to transition into remote learning this coming school year, to create space, familiarity, and a level of comfort using open access for student learning, and it's to build and enhance capacity in developing open access lessons in the future. This journey took me back and forth between curriculum maps and actualizing materials on open access to finally laying out lesson plans. My focal consideration was making the material accessible to students, knowing that teacher accessibility would follow suit. I selected modes of delivery of information I felt students would find engaging and provided them with opportunities to display their understanding of the material in a variety of different ways. In making these decisions, I also considered modifications and whether the material and the objectives held relevance to the life and the development of the students. Here you have a sample lesson plan for week 1. Standards, no lesson plan is complete without them. Language objectives, vocabulary, tools for online learning, links, assessments and rubrics, English learner supports, culturally relevant strategies, and special education considerations. As we continue with this lesson plan example, we get to a weekly breakdown with a 4-day week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we get into more detail with essential questions, learning objectives, and daily agendas, as well as material which has been linked into this lesson plan. I'll now give you an example of one of the activities you'll find in open access. Here's one. Students will fill in the slide with what they consider success and list the steps it would take to achieve their idea of success within the lesson plan. You could click on the picture and go to the slide. Before they start this assignment, students are going to participate in a discussion. They're going to look at several pictures, all representing the concept of the ladder of success. They're going to pick 2 of those pictures, and they're going to compare and contrast those 2 pictures and post their ideas in the discussion board. Once students have participated in the discussion and have responded to at least one other person's discussion post, they're to go into the assignment and make a copy of the slide. And once they've made a copy, they're going to fill it out with their thoughts on success. So how do you get this material? You go to Commons and Open Access to get the SFPS grade 10 content, drop it into your class shell. Use it as is or modify to your specific classroom and school needs. Specific PDs will be offered. Also, don't hesitate to ask a DLC for help. Some final thoughts. It's easier than you think. You jump in or step up as the case may be. You've got this. And wake me up in August.
So all those different apps is what the teacher presented to them this Monday and Tuesday. And so they got to practice those different apps. And I hope that gave you a flavor. I went into many of the teachers' classrooms the last couple of days, and some of the things I saw made me wish I was a teacher again. It looked fun. And I think it's fun for the teachers. It's hard, but it also is fun. And I think the more they learn, the better they're going to get through these next 4 weeks. So I appreciate that, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much. Dr. Gonzalez. You're muted.
That is the most common statement, right? President Noble, members of the board, Dr. Garcia, I am just really impressed with what you have done. And I thank you very much and your team. I know a lot of parents have asked me, and I've said I think it's really organized and much different than it was last spring. So I'm really thrilled to see what you've done. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Board Member Gonzalez.
Other questions from the board?
I would like to state that from friends that I have across the state, I have friends from teachers to administrators, that most of them are all of them that I spoke to are getting some professional development on how to use Google Classroom. But they told me that they didn't get any lessons given to them. They're developing their own, and they're using Google Classroom. And so I feel like our teachers are fortunate that we were able to do this, that we were able to pull it off. I mean, there were times where we were wondering if we could pull it off. So trust me, it was a hard summer. But again, we couldn't have done it without the fantastic teachers. So the great thing about this is that the teachers themselves that helped us through the summer said that was the best professional development they ever got, because they got better at their craft. And now they're out as ambassadors to all these schools, these 72 teachers. So to me, it's just the best outcome any of us could have imagined. I've never done anything like this in my life, and it's just really exciting.
I too have talked to a number of different people from around the state, and I know that you all have done a lot more than other places. And for that, I really am grateful.
Also, we were able to look at how we built our schedule to allow for more training for our teachers. If you remember, we were going to start school on the 17th, and we pushed it out. And I'm really happy that we did, because the teachers still have their 2 days of, their own planning time to work and, get their classrooms set up, to, just do what they need to do to get themselves ready. But we were also to be able to have this structured professional development, which a lot of districts were not able to do. And so I'm just really proud of the team and the work and the collaboration across various departments to make this work. But I think what Ms. Sink has shared about those 72 teachers, plus the digital learning coaches, plus the instructional coaches, there's a lot of help out there. And then, for example, when Sabra Romero has her training, our volunteers will have access to a lot of the training as well. What our challenge is going to be, and I need to send that message over to Partners in Ed, because they're trying to think about how to use their money, is that we pay for X amount of licenses for our textbooks, right? And our volunteers are going to want to have access to the textbooks. So we're going to have to figure out, okay, how can we come up with money for that? And that might be a good thing to talk to Partners in Ed about, or our other community members. I know, Ms. Noble, you've talked about community partners wanting to raise money to help the schools, licenses for the tutors to be able to have the online materials, because we have a limited number of licenses. I think would really be helpful. So we just keep learning as we go, but I couldn't be prouder of the work of this team. Thank you, Ms. Sink, and everyone who worked with you on it.
Thank you.
Yes, and I would say I caught the number of 72 teachers helping with all of that. That sounds like a just gigantic effort and coordination and lots of folks involved. And that is deeply impressive and it shows. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Bozé.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Garcia. I would like to say first and foremost, thank you for the wonderful presentation tonight. The amount of work that's gone into all of this is evident, and the continual changes and modifications. It's also really great to see. But I do want to share some of my concerns regarding some of the expectations that are being presented in these schedules. Again, I appreciate that the schedules have been modified a bit in the last week since we last saw them in the town halls. And I know that's proof of the district leadership's dedication to continuous improvement. I believe it's possible to have rigor and engagement without being rigid. Flexibility is one of the major lessons we've all had to learn this year. I applaud the attention to detail, the consideration of feedback from the spring session about wanting more direct teaching to be happening online. These things should definitely all be happening, and based on tonight's presentation, it looks like the implementation is great. But we also need to acknowledge that for many, strict adherence to this is just not realistic. The scenarios and situations in which this is impossible are too many to list. I've read them in emails from families, on social media, and as a full-time working mom myself, I also have those concerns. Requiring students to participate in every activity throughout the day without risk of consequences, I fear resulting in even more families deciding to pull their students from our awesome public schools. We have placed such a heavy emphasis on social emotional well-being, and that seems a little bit contradictory with rigid schedules, which are resulting in a lot of stress for families before school has even started. Parents and caregivers and students are already struggling, and no one wants to feel like they're being set up to fail. I urge consideration of accommodations, especially for working families. Perhaps that's already in place, but if it is, it has not been well conveyed to families. We can and should set high standards. We also should not place a high amount of undue pressure on families right now. We can and should approach the situation with the grace and kindness that we have promoted throughout this year. We can and should collaborate with families to ensure success. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if you want to share anything in response, Dr. Garcia. But I would just say perhaps that I share a lot of board member Bozé's concerns, and I know we're both, she and I are as anyone who's on social media in some of the parent groups is seeing a lot of this. I really appreciate the adjustments that have already been made, and just seeing that there will be a little more time for leg stretching and what have you. And, you know, the thing that gives me comfort is the continuous improvement. You know, it seems like we have a strong foundation with some good tools, and I think Board Member Bozé is right on in the sort of listening and learning with families. As Dr. Garcia heard earlier today, maybe some others, but in the back to school bash. And I had talked about some writing that I did. I was asked to do a little piece, and the 3 principles that I am really feeling very strongly as we go back to school that we all need to hold are to be gentle and kind to ourselves and others, to be flexible, and to actively communicate, because we really need to, and to never, as part of the active communication, not assume anybody knows what's going on within, a family or a classroom or anything. We need to share things and be really clear and explicit about it, because this is unprecedented territory, and it's really hard. I mean, I found myself thinking as we went through that schedule, and truly I would say I felt lighter than I did as Ms. Sink went through the schedule when I was listening at the town halls, and it looked more like it was almost 6 hours of online at once. And I appreciate the adjustments and know they'll continue to come. But I do think it's going to be hard. And I was thinking, what I want for my child is like a watch that will buzz him every 5 minutes before every time he's supposed to be on, because, and I do have a 4th grader, an entering 4th grader, but, figuring out how to get him on at all those times will be a challenge. And, there's so much, again, for those of us who are working full time and doing the juggle struggle, that will be a real thing to get used to. And I think of what was shared in the town halls about really working on a routine to support this. And I think we do need that. That's what school's about. So I hope we keep learning. I would also just say there was an article that circulated around that was out of Chicago, and somebody writing about the Chicago school district that said, what if we radically reimagined school? And there was a lot in there. And ultimately, the piece that spoke to me was a piece of what if we made life the curriculum, and it really emphasized imagination and active community problem solving as an idea for what the curriculum could be in a radically reimagined school year. And I hope on some level, because, and we heard, the comments in public forum earlier, that we are thinking about that and embracing the idea, because, man, things are getting weird, and we have an opportunity that may be unique, and hopefully it can be useful even for all of us to teach and learn resilience together, teamwork, problem solving, listening, all of these skills that really do in this district track to the attributes of a graduate that the board adopted. I don't know how long it was ago, a year and a half ago, Dr. Garcia. And, I hope that flexible piece, that we really do hold what is best for society, because that is what public school is about. It's about saving the world and the future society, and that flexibility and imagination is, and I know it will be in this district and with this leadership. I really trust that, but just want to say out loud, I think we need to be open to, again, that phrase, radical reimagining, and looking at life as the curriculum, because we're all learning so much right now.
Madam President, members of the board, thank you for sharing your thoughts, and we really will hold them close and, keep that in the forefront of our thinking. We're in an impossible position in terms of expectations that students make a year's growth in a year's time. The CNI team called out the power standards so that we're not focused on trying to teach everything, but what are the core things you have to learn in English language arts and math and science and social studies for your grade. Because when we come out of the pandemic, it's not going to be like our kids were in a gap year. They're going to have to be, your 4th grader will be a 5th grader next year. And if you've got a freshman, they're going to be a sophomore next year. And if they're a senior, they may be going to college next year. And so there is an expectation on us that think about the pre-K, kinder, first grade, second grade, that they learn how to read. And so it is very tough. I mean, like I've had discussions with friends about, wouldn't it be great if we just had a gap year, where this year the whole nation was on pause, and we could adapt to what we have. And yet we have this tremendous responsibility to ensure that, people have a reasonable expectation that if they send them to us, that they're going to, acquire a certain level of skill for the next year, and balancing it with the reality of parents working from home, not being able to adhere to a certain schedule, some kids not learning well online. I mean, some kids just don't adapt to that, right? And balancing it all. And, there will be some accountability. There very well may be the assessment at the end of the year. And then you have the people that hold the purse strings that are holding us accountable, like the Legislative Finance Committee, right? And the Legislative Education Study Committee. And they're expecting that we're investing in education and you're going to provide certain outcomes. And so I think we're almost in an impossible situation as a school system and as educational leaders. Like I said, we're doing the very best we can, trying to balance all of these needs and requirements. And we do recognize the social emotional aspect and the exploration. And maybe this will cause our school system as a nation to blow up and redesign itself. I hope it will in a positive way. I hope that public education will endure, because it is the backbone of democracy. We know that private education is not held to the same level of accountability because they're not funded with public dollars. And I get that. But what I am worried about is that when we go back to being measured again, if public education shows that we're really far behind, it's like, well, it's a failed system. You see, your kids aren't, so it's 6 of one and half dozen of the other. And I think Ms. Noble used to say all things are true a lot of the time, and I love that expression. And so I think we have to figure out how can we ensure that our kids leave to the next grade prepared for what's coming next, and balance that with some flexibility, understanding that our families are doing the best they can. And I've heard all kinds of great ideas from kids and families, and from faculty, where they say, well, maybe, it's really structured the first hour and a half of the day in the morning, and then you're on your own. You can go visit your lessons. You can do this, you can do that, you can do the other. Maybe it's structured in a certain way 2 days of the week, and the other 3 days of the week or something else. And so I think, we're going to have to take feedback. I think the public education department is going to learn a lot from what's happening all over the state. Perhaps they will change some of their expectations, our plans. A lot of plans weren't approved. I don't know if you know that, or many plans in the state were approved with conditions. So it wasn't a rubber stamp that every plan was approved. We were lucky that our plan was approved, no codicils, no conditions. Our plan was approved because it was solid in terms of the expectation. And I know that a lot of families are wanting their children to learn online this year and for the entire year. And how can we keep it engaging and do what we can for them and move them along? Those that have hybrid, you're going to have a different experience. And so, we'll just keep rolling with the punches. I think everything you have said is entirely valid. And I believe our team is also doing right by ensuring that we get 1 year's growth for 1 year's time. I think our real challenge is filling in those gaps. And, but within all those lessons, I think there's a wonderful opportunity to explore our world in a real way that brings applicability and relevance, because I think that's what gets kids excited, is doing things that are tied to the real world. Ms. Sink, anything else you would like to add to that monologue that we learned about?
No, I just want to say I absolutely respect our board members and their discussion, and I took some notes on what Board Member Bose and President Noble had to say, and I respect that. And we will keep looking at that flexibility, if you will, and see and listen to our teachers. They listen to our kids. They'll come back to us and let us know. So it's like Dr. Garcia says, we're in a new world, and we're just trying to get through this new world the best we can. And I, for one, do have high expectations, but I can also at the same time be human enough to be flexible. So we will definitely keep working on that. And you may be seeing some new things the next time we meet with you.
We could pretty much bet that you will.
Right. Thank you both very much. That was a very good spontaneous monologue by both Dr. Garcia and Ms. Sink, I would say. And, you know, I do think it is an all things are true moment. And I am and one of the things that I know is true is that we have strong academics, strong curriculum and instruction. I think that with Dr. Garcia and Ms. Sink and the team, and obviously marshaling a gigantic brain trust with more than 70 teachers and digital learning coaches and others, that we have the best academic foundation possible. And I really do appreciate that, and appreciate the willingness to be flexible, because and districts are facing the same thing, but you know, I want to be really clear of how evident it is of the strong foundation we have for the core business that we're in, which is teaching and learning in order to foster learning. And it has been a huge amount of work, and I know nobody's really had any break since March. So, you know, as ever, thank you all for what you do. And, you know, we are a strong district because of a lot of this. So just want to appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anything else on this from the board? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Sink. It is right about the time we thought we should be done for you. Thank you. Have a good evening. We will move on the agenda to our action items. And we'll start with the consent agenda. Does anyone have any questions, changes, anything they want to pull off? And if not, could we have a motion? Go ahead, Dr. Gonzalez.
I move, Madam President, members of the board, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you very much. I will go ahead and second that, and we'll do a roll call vote. Vice President Price?
Yes.
And I don't believe we have yet had Secretary Garcia join us again since we came back from executive session. Nope, doesn't look that way. Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Board Member Bose?
Yes.
And the president votes yes. Thank you very much. We approve the consent agenda. Action item B, amendment to resolution 2020-2021-1, Open Meetings Act. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam. I can't ever tell if I muted or didn't mute. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We had discussion about moving the Board of Education calendar, but in order to do that, we need to first pass the Open Meetings Act resolution that you do annually. We did this a few months ago, or actually wasn't a few months ago. It feels like months ago, right? It was just in July that you did this. So we are now asking to move from the first and third Tuesday of each month for your regular board meetings to the first and third Thursday of each month, unless otherwise specified.
This is Lorraine.
Go ahead, Vice President Price.
Yeah, why are we doing this?
I think for a number of reasons, Madam President, because we have study sessions on Thursday and board meetings on Tuesday. People felt it might be better. I think we discussed it last time to be on the same schedule. It also actually gives us another bite at the apple. We put the agenda out on Friday, but if items came up on Monday in order to still meet OMA, we are able to adjust that agenda and post it on Monday and still be within the 72 hours. It also gives staff a little more time because we have a cabinet meeting if there are last minute things that we need to do to prepare. So that is why we're recommending that we just switch from Tuesday to Thursday.
When is your cabinet meeting?
Monday.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions, comments from the board? I appreciate the simplicity of going to Thursdays for keeping scheduling straight. So I'll go ahead and move for approval.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. We'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with you this time, Board Member Bose.
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Don't have Secretary Garcia. Vice President Price.
Yes.
And the President votes yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board.
We will move on to action item C, amendment to 2020-2021 Board of Education meeting calendar. Dr. Garcia.
Madam President, members of the board, this just then has the schedule of meetings for the rest of the year to align with the Open Meetings Act resolution. However, it includes tentative study sessions, and it just adjusts from your calendar that had the regular board meeting on Tuesdays to the first and third Thursdays of the month. This only impacts regular board meetings.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. Any questions, comments from the board? I'll go ahead and move for approval again. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Any further discussion? We'll start with Dr. Gonzalez this time on a roll call vote.
Yes.
Vice President Price?
Yes.
Board Member Bose?
Yes.
Secretary Garcia still not here, and the President votes yes. Thank you very much. Action item D, duties and responsibilities of the Citizens Review Committee. Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. The CRC has been hard at work looking at their roles and defining them. I'd like to turn this over, I believe, to Executive Director Gabriel Merrill, who will review this, and he may be introducing members of the CRC. I don't know if they are here tonight to talk about this. Mr. Romero.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. I have Mr. Clifford Reese will be joining us this evening with a very short presentation to, let's see, to share with you regarding this endeavor. You can see my screen. The Citizens Review Committee, we wanted to go back and make sure that we have a good understanding according to our policies what their duties and responsibilities are. And as you look at the policy, you see that they're formed so that they can do some of the hard in the weeds work, and as far as construction funded by general obligation bonds, and make recommendations to the board for that. What we wanted to do, I'm sorry, let's talk about this just for a minute. What we wanted to do was align this document, which was somewhat dated, and make it more clearly describe the current CRC members, participants, and their roles and responsibilities. So we wanted to bring it up to date. And we worked very closely with Clifford Reese from the Citizens Review Committee to come up with this document, which was approved in the meeting before last Citizens Review Committee meeting. So Clifford, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Would you like me to continue, Mr. Romero?
Please, if you could talk about the different sections and maybe a few examples of how we updated the document.
I'd be glad to. Board President Noble, members of the board, Superintendent Garcia, my name is Clifford Reese. I've been a member of the CRC since March of 2015, and I was asked to represent the CRC tonight to answer any questions you may have about the document that's before you, titled Duties and Responsibilities of the CRC. The CRC began to discuss this document at our January 8th meeting, and we unanimously approved it on June 10th, 2020. We had extensive discussion by the CRC members. We had a presentation on legal issues that I raised. I'm a retired public health attorney, and others by District Legal Counsel Tony Ortiz on March 11th, 2020. We made several edits that are reflected in the document before you, and this is the final draft. So we could highlight a few items, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have in the interest of time. You can see that the document has been divided into different sections that we felt were important to describe the duties and responsibilities. We also felt that this document would be very important in orienting new CRC members as they come on to the CRC about what the background is, what the responsibilities are, what the legal basis is for our operations. We do have a provision that this document will be reviewed at least annually to update it if necessary. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions, as would Mr. Romero, that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Do we have it? Sorry, I'll just go ahead and say, are there questions from the board? Here we go. It would be great, Mr. Reese, if you might take us briefly through the duties and responsibilities there.
I'd be glad to, Board President. So we start with the definitions that are used throughout the document, the basic definitions, but some of them are important to be very specific about what the words mean, capital outlay project versus a capital project, the FMP, which is the Facility Master Plan. And so our first section are the definitions for of words that are used throughout the document. We discussed our general meeting schedule, which currently is the second Wednesday of every month, excluding July. We have added additional meetings at this time every 2 weeks now as we go through the Facility Master Plan process, which, as you board members know, is a labor-intensive process. And we will be presenting our recommendations to you sometime in the fall as we've gone through the large amount of information that's been presented to us. We wanted to make sure that the primary role of the members was clear of what one would do as a CRC member, particularly reviewing the Facilities Master Plan, the FMP. And of course, we are advisory only. We make recommendations to the board. We basically operate on a consensus basis. We do take votes, but usually we've reached consensus on issues that, that come before us. And we also, of course, hear presentations from district staff, from architects, from a variety of people, from teachers, principals, about their capital outlay needs. We spent a significant amount of time being clear in Roman numeral 4 on page 3 about the composition of the CRC, to be very clear how one is appointed, who the members are, and who gets to vote and who doesn't, although I just said that we do this by consensus. And that's laid out there. And as you can see, the membership is appointed by the board. Not everyone votes, but we make it clear who does have a vote. We talk about the membership guidelines, the basic duties of our members. We also have added something to be specific about having a vice chair as well as a chair. We've had an informally appointed vice chair to fill in when the chair has not been available. But we now, in this document, and that's on page 3, Roman numeral 5, number 5, we also include specifically a vice chair, each of whom will serve for at least 2 years. We talk about CRC members who may miss meetings without good cause being replaced. And then we talk about our process guidelines for how we will conduct our business. And then the last section, which as a public sector attorney is near and dear to my heart, the applicable legal authorities that govern the CRC, so that it's clear what we can and can't do. I actually was informed by this process, and I learned about Santa Fe Public School Policy 118, which I wasn't aware of until we actually took up this document. And those were some of the questions that I asked Mr. Ortiz, as well as whether the CRC is legally required to follow the Open Meetings Act. And I now understand that under the board policy, we are, although under as I read the Open Meetings Act, we are an advisory body and are not mandated to comply with the Open Meetings Act, but because the board has made a policy decision, we are, and we do follow the Open Meetings Act. Board President Noble, is that sufficient summary?
That was great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And yes, transparency is key. Open meetings. Any other questions from the board? Is there a motion? Board Member Bose.
Sorry. Board President Noble, members of the board, and Superintendent Garcia, I just wanted to express gratitude for all the work that has gone into this document. I saw many back and forth communications between Mr. Romero and Mr. Reese, and it was very thoughtful and also very educational to me as I was joining the board and sitting on the CRC. It's great to have it laid out so carefully and thoroughly and in a language that everyone can understand. So I appreciate that.
This is Lorraine Price.
Go ahead, Vice President Price.
I move for approval.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. And just to say, echo Board Member Bose's sentiments, and I appreciate the work, especially the clarity of the language. It is very clear and thorough, and it's clearly some good work. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Vice President Price?
Yes.
Board Member Bose?
Yes.
Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
And the president votes yes. Thank you very much for being here, Mr. Reese, and for your service, and for everybody on the CRC for their service.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank the CRC for all the hard work they are doing and will continue to do with all the work we have to do on the facilities planning.
Yes. Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Cliff, if you can take back to the CRC, or I may be I will be at the next meeting. Thank you so much. I think this document is really going to be helpful also when you onboard new CRC members, so they truly understand their role. I think it will be helpful to new superintendents whenever that time comes. to understand what the CRC is all about. And just my gratitude, I want to echo the comments that were made of, I mean, it's hard work and it's really important work. And the seriousness that they take, in approaching the work and vetting the recommendations so that the very best recommendations come to the board. The work that's being done now in the facilities master plan is really quite intense and very thorough. And they ask great questions. And they put the staff and myself through the paces here and there. But I think that's what they're supposed to do. And just done a great job. And I think it's not all school districts have this type of structure. And I think it also, to our voters of Santa Fe County, can rest assured that their fellow neighbors and citizens, right, are representing them here and really taking the time on how we spend those capital dollars, but also in planning for them when we go out for questions to the community. So my gratitude, truly, you guys do a great job. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Garcia. I would be glad to transmit that to the CRC at our next meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to action item E, 2021 Audit Committee appointment for District 4. And given that we don't have Secretary Garcia with us, I don't believe we can take action on this.
No, and Madam President, he also asked if people had ideas for him. So I know that only one board member can at a time talk about, on a particular issue, so we don't violate OMA. But if people do have nominations or ideas, if you want to email me or text me, I will be happy to share ideas with Mr. Garcia on an appointment.
Thank you. And it is such an important committee. Moving on to Roman numeral 9, item A, community support for distance learning and increasing equity. Just to say, and I wanted to provide an update to the board, this is an item that I'm probably going to place on the agenda just for a little while so that we have a space to discuss this. I know many of us are concerned about the potential for the digital divide widening and for equity for us to slip in equity, for things to get worse, because many of the students and families that are in a variety of facing a variety of difficulties just with the internet, with learning English, accessing materials, technology, as well as special education, of course. And, I do think we have our priorities right and who comes back to school first with special ed and the younger students. But this is a very difficult thing. And I wanted to update the board just because I've had about 18 meetings since we last met with 12 or 14 community partners and organizations. And there's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of people, of course, doing good work. There are a lot of questions about specific needs, as Dr. Garcia mentioned earlier. One of them could be the access for volunteers for these subscriptions. There are a lot of people for volunteers, and I'm hoping that as a community we can develop some community level solutions, if you will. And it's been pretty inspiring to talk to all of our partners, and there's a lot of good ideas out there and a lot of questions. And, this is a really important time to align our resources for maximum impact, to call on our community for the things we need, whether it's funding for extra licenses or supplies or food or flexible funds to keep the lights on for families, that sort of thing. or for volunteers and tutors. And, we know that many families feel not very well equipped to support their child, their student or students in a distance learning program. And so to think about ways that we can provide those supports and really work on rooting support for this public school district deep in the community. So I'm continuing again to talk to folks and to work on, after these 18 meetings, I've got 3 buckets that things sort of sit in. One is support for distance learning, which is, making sure that everybody has their devices, their technology working, is able to get online, that we plug some of those gaps in internet access, that sort of thing. Another bucket is around childcare and supervision, and these sort of are a Venn diagram, they all overlap. And in the childcare and supervision bucket, working families, particularly those, I keep thinking about a single parent who has shift work, whether it's at a grocery store or a hospital, somewhere as an essential worker, and more than one child who are young. And it just, I don't know how that parent can get it done. And so thinking about how we as a community come together and support each other with childcare, and lots of parents are making, arrangements and podding and trading and that sort of thing. Anyway, and then the third bucket is the wraparound supports, which may be food, again, utility bills. It even is housing in the great work of Adelante, which is, of course, a program under the Santa Fe Public Schools, and really doing some extraordinary work. So that's my update for the board. We're looking at having some conversations about childcare and how that can happen. I've talked about my fantasy of sort of tents in parks and small pods of 5 students from classes, ideally, supervised and supported by a caring and nurturing and knowledgeable adults. So, we can work to get there. I even actually, partly because my day job and my school board job do intersect, talk to a woman in Taos about what they have done, which is actually quite close to the, pods in parks with tents. She is literally in the process of getting outdoor tents, as I know we are, to use school property as well. And I want to thank Dr. Garcia for her thoughts on this in talking with me, and all of our community partners for what they do and how collaborative and intentional everybody is. And I don't know if there are any questions or comments from the board, but I'd say that's what I have at this point. Yes, Dr. Garcia, go ahead.
Excuse me, I should have taken that lozenge out of my mouth first. I want to thank you, for just keeping this in our consciousness. I also want to thank Ms. Wagner for her hard work on this as well, and Crystal Ibata and Sabra Romero and others on the team, and all the people that have, been willing to play on it, and for you, just making this come all together. I just want the board to know, and I think I shared with all the board members that memo from the Public Ed Department. I'm pretty sure I did, regarding childcare and what's happening in the state. And we'll be bringing a policy, just in case we need it, to allow us to do some things in a different way around that. We won't have it ready for the 20th, but we will probably for the first board meeting in September. But it really, it's just you talk about reinventing or knocking the doors down, or how we do community schools, right? Is really, I think, accelerated. So many things have been accelerated because of the pandemic and having to do things differently. And I think that's where some of the silver lining in this horrible cloud that is over us right now, you find these things that give you hope for transformation for the future, to better address equity and support our families. Because when our families are supported, our kids are going to do better in school. That's the whole idea, I think, of schools being the hub, and around the community schools movement for many years, over 20 years now, is around how we're all so interconnected, and the school is something that we all have in common, and how we can come together to support our families. So thank you so much, Ms. Noble. I look forward to continuing to collaborate on this.
Thank you. Dr. Gonzalez.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Garcia, are we doing training for parents on how to use these platforms? Because I think that's part of equity too. I mean, if they understand how to help their kids.
Madam President, there are training modules and webinars that are available, and we need to publicize those. You know, we just don't want to overwhelm people too much with everything. But
Right.
Dr. Ryan, would you like to talk to that?
Yes, we'll have trainings for parents. We're also going to give them greater access. Our open access portal will allow parents to see their students' grade or work and assignments and the things that were turned in, which they didn't have prior to this COVID response. So we're going to be providing a much more access, training on how to use the tools, and also some expectations about how to set up a learning space for their child and how they should work with the child throughout the day.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments, questions? Thank you very much. And staying with board discussion, wanted to, at least before this meeting expires, have a moment of silence for J.B. White, who of course was recently killed and is well known and beloved in this community for his extraordinary performance as the Santa Fe High School Demon. And also, just as we take a moment of silence, want to think about all of the victims of violence and gun violence out there, and particularly right now, our teenagers who are hurting, and we really just need to hold them and send them love and do everything we can to support them in whatever it is they're facing. So for now, let's take a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. And I believe Board Member Bose wanted to say a few words, and I do want to thank Dr. Garcia and the team at the district for their efforts to push the pledge against gun violence as well. And Board Member Bose, I think that was on your mind.
Thank you, Board President Noble, members of the board, Dr. Garcia. I really just wanted to say thank you for that, the pledge that you sent out to students to sign last week. I think it's a wonderful acknowledgement of the struggles that we have with gun violence. And as we have discussed before, the shared responsibility that we all have, and it can't just be adults saying this is important. Kids need to commit to that. And these are friends, these are classmates, these are children of our community, and we should be doing everything that we can, and we should all be committed to that. And so I applaud you for calling on the students to commit to that, as well as the adults in our community. Thank you.
And thank you, Board Member Bose, for making sure we continue to talk about this, which we need to, and let people know about the pledge and let the wonderful young people who are involved in this, many of them who spoke up in the event that the Santa Fe Public Schools held from our high schools, and the students' voices are really powerful and profound. And I have no doubt that as we have them lead on this issue and other powerful issues, we will do better as a community because they are so wise. Okay, moving on to advanced planning. So these, if we could see the calendar, that would be wonderful. These dates, do they reflect the new calendar?
No, Madam President, because you hadn't
We
acted
had
on
not
it yet.
approved it. Okay.
So every board meeting, regular board meeting, will now be moved up by 2 days, right, to Thursdays. So we will publish them now with what you took action today to move all the regular board meetings to Thursday. And we'll send out a new calendar to you.
Okay, thank you. That was going to be my request, is that if we could all be emailed the new calendar as soon as possible, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
We have our next. So Madam President, this was a special board meeting. So instead of having our regular board meeting on the 18th with all the bells and whistles that are on your regular board meeting agenda, it will be the 20th. So next Thursday, we'll have a regular board meeting and most likely an executive session, but that hasn't been determined yet.
Okay, so a week from tonight, very likely an executive session at 4:30 and a regular session at 5:30.
That is correct, Madam President, members of the board.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, anything else? Okay, well, that is it for tonight's board meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here, and everyone who tuned in.
Sorry, I was just checking some dates quickly, and I'm not sure that those September dates are correct. So just when things get moved over, double check. Like the September 6th, I think, is a Sunday. So
thank you, Board Member Bose, Madam President. We'll take a careful look at that.
Okay, great. And obviously, if we need to adjust that.
And you are correct, it is a Sunday.
Sure does look like a Sunday.
I think it should have been the 9th, but we'll double check. Thank you. Good catch.
Yes. And obviously, anything we need to do, we can bring that forward at the next board meeting if we do need to officially change the calendar, just to make sure it's all square. Okay. After a slight false start, now we can say we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. We'll see you here next week.